Welcome to Dungeon Master. We are at level 28 or level 47. But look at this. We see already a glimpse of an artwork that's being reshaped before us. It is the art that we see in this book. But the words and letters are all dissolved out like the lighting's off. But we shall go brightly into this fanatical organization of focus and where we can see the pictures and where we cannot. And there is Dungeon Master, under the giraffe, trying to find his way to the next beacon, and going very slowly among the artworks that framed the Western and Eastern world from the magic that they apparently create as a chessboard does to chessboards, and if waking up has to do with angels in the picture, and suddenly someone like a duchess or a Queen Amidala of the Senate, of the Princess Senate. And this is a book cover of a deep metaphorical place where they hold wash basins. This is the guru god King Tut. He was one of the challengers of Agrippa and Attila the Hun, until he was faced to fight the 300 Spartan warriors and took over as the general. This is a lock and key. I don't have the key to it. I do have a key. Let's see if it fits. Got my key. Let's see. Cannot pick lock. Cannot pick lock. Well, let's see if there's any treasure on the next page anyway. There's the green man, with the fruit for hair and the leaves for his chin. And there's a few shreds of what's last of the last pencil ink painting. This looks like some kind of an animal. It's a bird with a tusked teak of a beak. I don't understand how it's pink flamingo-esque with a almost anteater ant-looking bill, but it's a duckbill platypus almost. But it's a duckbill pheasant, but it's a duckbill flamingo. In the background we had the Antacids, Dr. Shealy's original band. And I hope that Aaron hears this soon, because we are lamenting his trailing along on the previous 14 level as though he's got to prove the Dutch Bible was even as good as this. In this painting, everyone is in freeze frame, and for once the painting is not holding still. But I do see a promised land somewhere in there. And then we have this incredible man. He's playing guitar with the Antacids and doesn't even know he's in the video. And that it's another version of Johnny Cash is already disturbing, because the Antacids plays only covers because their few written songs are so awfully dramatic that it's hard to get a bite out of anything they say, even in nude photo pictures, which make no sense. And this, they obviously weren't for anything but fascination, as they were not erotic, which is what we're avoiding in this show. Except neurotic is what we are. And they take this wind sweep through the church canal, and then there's a girl sitting up in her chair, and she's a young girl, and then we see Jesus. He's attached to ropes or something, up high preaching like a rabbi would at the market. And look at this. It looks like a Kenneth Anger drawing of divination of a demon, incantation of my demon brother, divination of my demon brother. I always get those Kenneth Anger films. This could be the Scorpio Rising logo. This looks like something Basquiat would do, as though it was some kind of spray paint graffiti turned into a political social issue, as though Basquiat saw the real for what it was, as though it was a paper tiger or something, working with Andy Warhol as he did. This is God and Noah's Ark and the ark is about to fall on Noah, but fortunately they're flipping over right as the animals are getting back comfortable. They might be flipped upside down in the water. It's said to have rained so hard that only Noah and his family survived. But that in this painting they can see the fish traveling above them is worthy of the fact that Moses or Noah may have already found land, and that he hasn't shaved in 40 days is quite relevant. And then we have a prince or a Dumas or a spectator sport of the aristocracy who are coming to make sure that our paintings are okay. And this is one of my favorites. It's called red dot, black dot, yellow square, green triangle. And I love this picture because it makes sense that there's a red dot, black dot, green triangle, and a yellow square. But look at that black coming out the side of the red. That's a strange cover-up of a square that wouldn't have protruded on any other side, but then that we have a purple side to this orange juice and another yellow sphere and some pencil and ink from an earlier project means that now we move on to an even more dreary aesthetic of someone in bed while they're being tended to in the aristocracy of putting up paintings. And it's a painting about paintings that we've gotten into, and here's another painting of the painter who painted the paintings of the painter, and then painted the paintings of the saints, and then sold the saints as indulgences. And as much as this looks like a Renaissance painting, it also looks like one of those Andrei Rublev indulgences, which is why we like the color and why we get to zoom in. Now, if we could just take a magnifying glass to what makes this work, we have no look obvious as we come down on the painting and see that we do still have neutral focus close up. And this is a party because this is like a comic book happening in the rise and fall of an empire, although they're being jazzed along by these informational musicians who are playing for the theatrical show, who the leaders are engaged in performing. And this is none other than a bridge. The bridge looks like it's in Venice. The gondolas look like they're in Venice. There are some places in Amsterdam that look similar, but this is most likely an Italian fresco. This looks like a photograph so much that I'm about to bill it as a photograph. But if you look carefully, it is stenciled in, but it looks like a computer reproduction. But at the same time, it's too shaky to see that this is like an almost photographic representation, but done with paint. And that all these are done with paint is a mystery to me because I can't figure out how you can glob on a little bit here of black and spread it in your black background while still taking into account that these figurines who are playing chess or who are battling the religious war against each other on a game table, and they're falling off and they're getting in weird ways, and that they're like the orchestra and that they can't find what they're looking for except a drum, means that they're on a raft to an adventure to be stuck. And then we have the typical demon versus angel battle where no one's winning and everyone's losing, and some dude lost his face. He's not just lost in space, he lost his face. And this is a nice, tidy suit and apparatus that can only be found in the real creatures of class. We're barely anywhere, but we're seeing these revolving planes and these dusk till dawn duties that keep us here in Dungeon Master. And this one almost makes me want to level us up, because here we have a young boy sharing a raft with a man, and it's a picture of almost a utopian upstream picture that we see even used in the movie Days of Heaven. And we hear the antacids in the background tussling and bustling before they get to another song, of which they have written some of them. That Life magazine is in this photo and used as a photo within a photo. Remember, there are paintings within paintings, and sometimes the picture within the picture is what defines it, just like it did with the ripped one of Basquiat and the other paintings of paintings. That these men are so automaton generic down here, and that the Life magazine looks even more real than some of these people, and that she's wearing it on her head so she doesn't have to be represented as her normal self is already subversive. But is it as subversive as this angel who's somehow pouring this lizard down on the wind, making stars? This is Boccaconi. It's a cubist painting of the face of God, but it's all smeared up because we always see the face of God this way, but it's always smeared up because we're drinking. And when you drink, things get cubist, and I'm not insulting cubism at all, but this looks like what I see when I see the face of God. Only I've had a little bit of the suds in my system, and I can't but help say that I'm not making fun of this painting because it would be so technically hard to draft that it looks impossible just like the rest. And that these paintings are impossible to recreate is not entirely true because the restorer of the paintings goes in and sits with an easel at all of these museums and refashions the painting exactly color to color, line to line, precept upon precept. The paintings are remodeled and given hope, and they're still the original ones. But to have come in the Phaedon art book and approach us at Dungeon Master is a query not soon to be forgotten. And this is outside the window, the frame within the frame. There's so many frames within a frame, and this one makes the background look like it's actually in the background. How could we dare see it any other way? And look here, it's angels at the Merry-Mount, and they're all happy to be surrounding her, giving her weapons and whatnot. And then we see the Botero, mother and child, and that we're only in the bees, and that we have so far to go to see this art book and to see where we're going, that we may have to branch it out into other spectacles. But we will continue as we can. This is an interesting painting because it's a nude, and she's showing her butt to be rare, but by today's standards, it leaves really nothing lacking. And this is an interesting summerside piece that almost looks like an impressionism, but isn't exactly impressionism, but that it's dotted the way impressionism is, and that it's built on other images that are somewhat realistic, but somewhere only seen in primary colors of the painting. And this means we must travel on. We see Artemis, recreation in man, her bow given to the hunter, who aims upward at the sky only to show that his arrow will come back down in a curve like his bow is curved, proving that the world is curved the way gravity drops his arrow. And it would actually seem to fire straight if he was on a curved axis, but it would curve all the more when falling from the sky, if made to go straight against the curvature of the bow versus the curvature of the art medium and the curvature of the world that will drop the arrow right at his feet if it were to fly around the whole world at once. Now this looks like a cage that we used to keep a snake in, and if the snake's loose, I hope it's not one of those cobras like they have in Prague that shoot fire out of its mouth. Speaking of shooting fire out of its mouth, this painting is called The Woman That Shot Fire Out of Her Mouth and It Became a Baby. Well, everybody knows that's Mary and Jesus, just like the most recommended paintings of all, Mary and Jesus, Mary and Jesus. But this may not be Mary and Jesus. This may be some mother who adopted a boy, or some mother who's had a boy for 2 years, or some mother that's compassionate, or just a woman holding a baby. It doesn't have to be Mary and the baby, Jesus. But we're so used to Renaissance painters going back to Mary and Jesus in so many ways that this plain one makes us just automatically think it's Mary and Jesus. But how many paintings really are Mary and Jesus? Well, most of them. Anyways, we look at this. Look, it's Mary and it's Jesus. How we go into that with years of warnings of goats like Bacchus in between, sneaking in there in this impressionistic fusion of explosion. Oh, look, naked angels. Naked angels are playing with naked angels. But then this is a naked angel playing with a naked angel in a gold Midas touch way, that Midas might have touched these animals and turned them to gold, but her hair is actually such a wicked afro that it's somehow Maleficent's hair, and it's becoming a snake to bite the dog. And instead of her getting hair of the dog, she gets hair like a snake. And we must adjust. We see in here there are shells of mini many animals. And if we look over here, we gain a level immediately by seeing that these people are eating the shells that had been prawned open and given as oyster challenges to these men who are falling all over the place drunk and still fighting for oysters. That these paintings are related is because they're in a book that's telling a story. But we have to remember where we mark our page, because Dungeon Master later down the road will come back to this and celebrate more paintings. That we're getting not so close to the end, but that the level up is in sight. The second level up of this game almost came when we went to the last painting, but you can see no one arrived to see that the bishop was going to spare them. Now in this painting, we're back in the mess hall and everything's cleaned up, except they're about to have more food and they don't know where they are, and they could be in a bathroom or could be it looks like they're getting their hair cut. But how could they get their hair cut in the bathroom where they're taking their dirty laundry? Buren was still on B, and look at this Metropolis wannabe set. Or was Metropolis trying to be it? Or is this just a futuristic-looking architecture in a place that already exists? Or all three? And then we have someone sitting aboard. Hang on, I must readjust this. That we have someone sitting aboard a stool upon which two witnesses are claiming that she's guilty. Guilty of what? Attracting them. I bet she attracted them and now they're somehow persecuting them. That's what it usually is with these pictures that aren't the Virgin Mary. Although there are some that angels taunt the Virgin Mary. We're not really sure which Mary it is out of the Marys in the Bible, but we know it isn't Bloody Mary, and I don't mean the drink, and I don't mean the mirror game, and I don't mean, well, we won't talk about what all I don't mean, but here's some interesting hair that was found on the crime scene of where the marijuana was last laid. Now, if we look here, there was a little shred of marijuana that fell off into the hair, and we're going to see if we can preserve it. That painting is so offensive because I've called it a hairball is totally not the right artistic attitude to be taking towards these extreme aristocratic dot and two smudge paintings. And the dot and two smudge paintings was basically what this guy's seeing from his trellis is this, because it's so light out that the sun has blinded everything and all they can see is a few street cars going by. This is 7 Mary 3 with a baby Jesus, the Anabaptist, and I don't see what's wrong with Mary and Jesus in a C-rated film, that this is getting a C and that the first were A and B matters not that there were so many B composers of paintings. And this looks like the outer edge of a European city that to me almost looks like something from the Italian harbor, but I can't tell exactly. And that we have Canova, not Casanova, Canova. And that there's a feather head up there, looks like it could be on a phoenix down, but it's stone, so it's headed towards the other practitioners that are below. And that they could be entwined, or that they could just be misshapen elements that look like they're entwined. Or that someone slays someone with a sword and the head people are fiery rosters. This is a drunken brothel, but only the men are involved. And it looks like John the Baptist may be at the brothel about to lose his head. It looks like they're vying for his head. It looks like a boxing match that never happened, but the dance of the seven veils has never been so obstructified than by this irrational postmodern picture of a wheelie tractor pumping a tin full of grass while being pumped in oil, and it's all shuddering and machine sputtering, and it makes noises like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is a film that I noticed Dr. Sheely hasn't reviewed, although he's being rebellious about it. That this is the original motive for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, no one can know. But we have a scene of two women playing with puppies, and they're middle upper class, and they're aristocrats practically, and they're so into their dogs that they've started a dog show, but they're so bored by sitting in front of this painter who's painting them and seeing the real life picture that he paints in the boredom. This looks like some kind of no-faced with a triangle preschool with a cross in the background as though to prevent the vampires from coming through. Now that we prevent vampires from coming through doesn't mean we don't have a target underneath where we throw the dot and it will hit the vampire who's reaching for the cone, which all vampires will reach for a cone when they see one, and conies are the best way to hide a cross, which she left out, and the vampire will then incinerate in front of the cross. And here is the vampire killer himself, Jesus. His other name in this picture is Abraham Lincoln, and it was painted far before Abraham Lincoln, proves that it's Illuminati, and proves that Lincoln was meant to free the Jews, and free the slaves, and free everyone, and free the women, because Jesus was going to the cross as the perfect, never sinned guy, but boy did he have some major splinters from carrying that cross like that and trying to hug Peter at the same time. He got such a mega splinter that they were able to salvage the splinter and make them into the cross with this picture in case the vampire came in to devour. Now here is a female vampire devouring some kind of a liver, that it's not a chicken liver but a human liver, I don't know. And this is a different girl who is trying out for a play at a brothel, and it's called Dance of the Seven Veils, and she brought the actual head of John the Baptist, who was still recently cut off in a few earlier paintings. That this tells a story is not a coincidence, because now we have Jesus drinking like a vampire all the blood of everyone who's been killed, and he had to take a sample from DNA of all blood of everyone who's ever been killed and bring them all back to life in heaven. But first he had to take one big frothy punchy drink of that blood. These are a lot of seagulls that came to harvest on oyster eggs, and there was such an abundance of oyster eggs this time of the year in Europe that these cranes, these pink flamingos, just became practically seashells and spattered all over the earth. This is interesting because it's a gold plate, not a painting, and how it ended up in the art book when it's architecture, I don't know, but that it's figurines we like, that there's some smashed horse figurine down there that she's putting a foot on, and it looks like they're either in love with each other and they're both women, or that this one's harloting as a woman and pretending, or that they're trouble in paradise and have it all and don't know how to get each other. And he's offering her the butter knife so she can spread butter on her toast. And yeah, we all know what they do with toast and things like that when they're, yeah. Last Tango in Paris, maybe? I don't know if that was ever in Paris. This looks like Mount Vesuvius after it erupted and closed back hollow a few years before it erupted again. And it erupts like Old Faithful at the Rocky Mountain National Forests of India. We all know that Mount Talkeetna will blow again. Now, these are two people that just flew out of the volcano, and that they look all Gothic is no accident, because they're going to Kafka's house in Gothic clothing. They're all painted up, but that they're flying over Amsterdam is probably because they had some of the hallucinogenic weed, which actually makes you fly, because you think you're flying, and it looks like you're flying, and therefore you're actually flying, because in your senses it looks and feels like you are, which is only because you are really flying. Like Peter Pan, you think of a wonderful thought, any kind of thought, and it looks like Jesus is thinking of a thought about what card to draw for blackjack, because if he doesn't draw the dice, and they cast the dice soon, and Judas is about to leave and betray him, we all know what happens to Judas. He gets chewed on by the devil's head, just like the Dutch Bible said, just like Dante's Inferno said, just like Egyptian Book of the Dead said, just like the Bible never said. But if the Bible doesn't say it, look up the Kabbalah, because Judas' head going to be snacked on by Satan. Why Satan would snack on Judas' head, I don't know, but look, the head is missing from this. Is it the body left of Judas? Well, they look like a female, but the female's missing an arms and a head. Is this like the Venus de Milo? Or did they behead and de-arm it because that's how they made sculptures in Greece? Or did the head and arms fall off in Greece? And this is commentary of it. This I am lost. And this bridge is absolutely, really one of the most beautiful paintings I've seen yet, because it's not all choreographed, scenographied with images of angels kissing everyone naked. In fact, it's a bridge in its own naked form, and it's beautiful. Now that we're moseying into interesting territories, because we're going to have to call this a map for Dungeon Master, but we are very, very few pages into this book, and we must remind everyone that Dungeon Master 16 may come out soon and will probably take us on the next part of the tour, and that's a skull of mine when I promised to take them on the tour and let them down by going back to some other game that we've already played. And that the movies are out for now because of all those westerns that clogged me up, but will be discussed by Dr. Sheely in his masterclass. This is Dungeon Master, not to be confused with Masterclass, although Dungeon Master is now on Masterclass. Everything I have is on Masterclass. But Dungeon Master is referring to a master as in someone who is a master of getting through the dungeons. And these guys are about to go into a dungeon without a dungeon master and may come out looking like this skull next to a book and a potion. That the person that's the skull didn't drink the potion in time to come back to life is a given. That this is a wild sketching of pen and ink that looks very offensive, but somehow there's an owl on his neck. And it's like the owl on his neck of this Indian but kind of ferocious looking man. Could be a punk cover album of The Clash or something, the Ramones or something. And here is Peter Ramone above his chariot, and it's so proudly positioned that we see 2 feet up, as though the chariotersman is going to take his post on a pony show. And here we see a whole group of people on a hill. Or is it one person fallen dead and in half? But that it's at a canyon of something of great lighting that looks to be biblical, but again doesn't have to be just because it's a picture of nature. That these strange pictures of nature seem to remind me of the Bible. Goes back to seeing that Noah's Ark painting where his beard was hanging down to his legs. And then this is something interesting because it's an alien Insane Clown Posse member out on his mowing grass day, and he's about to go over a cliff like usual, which he always learns to fly, like those in the Peter Pan story, but that the squids growing in his tree is a harvesting he's doing with the billy club and the long-ass eel that he's heeling into the water. That he's coming up with his songs, practicing his hitman moves, and also wondering how his juggalos are doing is all true, but that he's taken the blue rod of scepter and he's about to unleash it on this eel thing before it falls into the tunnel and reawakens the tree of life so that we can get out the squids and send them to the water so they can come alive after plucked from the tree. Now, this is the British flag being completely what's the better word? It looks like they're all being slaughtered, and it looks like blood's dripping off of it. It could very well be that this flag's being desecrated in a battle moment, maybe even against Napoleon in Great Britain. Something so Renaissance and horror that it's like Barry Lyndon, just one of the freeze frames. And this is the rock that sat on the soap dish, that sat in my shower, that looked like a confession booth, kind of, with some of its lacing, and had a couple of pictures fall out. I love this painting. It's really good. I like minimalism. Minimalism is modernist, and modernist is without a metaphysic. These metaphysics of reality, I like copying things you see, even if you have to interject where the characters are and how they look and what they're doing, even in an impressionistic way. It's realism. But the modernism that comes out in these classical paintings is some of the stories that are told that bring conflict arise but never quite resolve them in one picture, except that they're happy in the comedies and dramatically infused in the dramas, which is where divine comedy comes from, because so many of these people dealing with the spiritual afterlife above and below, heaven and or hell, have smiles upon their face at the moment that they're going to ascend. Now, if they have smiles on their face, it's a comedy, and someone has told something funny. Like this looks like a shot from Decameron, but could actually be from Canterbury Tales. But it may not be that. It may just be that these are stereotypes of Canterbury Tales, that they've met some lad along the road who may even be Simon Magus training the apostles, is also apparently clear, and that every apostle met on the road who's holding a swizzle stick that connects to his backpack, which is obviously where he's got the fire bolt coming from, is impressing St. Peter to no end, who's about to light a cigarette on Simon Magus' fire chart. Now, we've come to a difficult place, and that is where I have to do the damage and find a bookmark and leave us here. Because while the antacids are still roiling on, we've come close to the two most normal, easygoing pictures, and boy, are they leaving me fractured. This one looks like all kinds of things from far away, but up close it looks like a windy desert with maybe a windy waterfall, or if those are rocks sliding, I don't know, but it could be a picture of an album cover of the Moody Blues. Speaking of Moody Blues, these are the Moody Blues Last Supper remnants. When the Moody Blues quit as a band, they're still around as a band, but they came back, and they had one religious ceremony in the 70s when they first shut down the Moody Blues for losing their orchestra. And it was out of these holy cups the Moody Grail was born. And when the Moody Grail was born, the Moody Blues affected everything that antacids would play. And though we have a long journey in front of us to get through, this is what Phaedon wanted. He wanted us to see the most important artworks of the world, and that we've only made it to Gazini. We've made it to Gazini. That's wild, because Crag is last. And everybody knows Crag has nothing to do with that other sounding word that's like it in Colorado, of whence Dr. Sheedy once was. And how many crags have there been in the plot since he's left his own crag and discovered a new territory where the Western Slope cinema will rise slowly and Dungeon Master will take its piece for now and reconnect you with the long, long adventure ahead that we can only entice with a flip book to see an animated cartoon, and that it's a different flip book each time is really resonating with me. And so we fade into these pictures that we will see one at a time, perhaps not all of them. We even saw This Is Not a Pipe by a French painter, that there's an index, that it's a movie, just flipping it is amazing. And we say this, we will come back, if not next time, but again and again till we've whittled away at what we seem to be a cartoon memory of what direction this book is going in. That I don't know who Phaedon is other than an Illuminati Pythagorean that puts together all the best paintings in one book. Reminds me that there's a film book that's not as good because it doesn't have all the masters in it, whereas this covers most ground, is thick, and looks like a cartoon, no matter which way you play it. And so, the flip book is complete for now. Dungeon Master Jenny 15, mark it off. The bard's about to sing, and we're going to come back to Phaedon and the ultimate artwork dungeon. And bear with me that Van Eyck was in a dungeon in display on Belgium, and that the Van Eyck display did have magic lanterns coming at the paintings, and did have a girl turn into a cat painting above Madame Trousseau's cat potty, and that it looked like the paintings were changing to skeletons, and it looked like they were dragging Jesus on all four corners to the earth. They were drawing and quartering him on horses as monks. That I swear I saw a severed head, freshly severed, in that Van Eyck display is not as crazy as the wine tasting I had that made me learn levitation. But since levitation is illegal in America, I no longer know how to levitate. Goodbye.